Well, hello everyone. And today we go on a wonderful journey to take from her notes, lost and lonely to surviving and thriving with best-selling author, speaker, host, executive coach, and master trainer, Elian Haan. So I was so delighted to have you with us here today, Elian. We met a few months ago, I think it was, via a common contact, and we really hit it off. And we do sort of feel that we're probably out of the same mold in a way. So let's start with you sharing a little bit about yourself, what you do and why you do it before we get to our absolutely fabulous topic to start the year here, getting our
Yeah.
sexy back. It just makes me feel all effervescent.
Good morning, Jude. Well, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so excited. A little Dutch tulip in Texas that ended up just south of Dallas. So what happened? It's a long story that we'll get into in a short version here. So I have been in Texas for years now. I work as a counselor and coach. I am a certified professional coach and I work with people in their midlife phase. So executive coach in a sense that I like to work with powerful women, men that are having a successful life,
Right.
but there is something missing, they're stuck. And sometimes that is transition, sometimes that is loss of a loved one, sometimes that is a divorce, sometimes that is the empty nest syndrome, right? So I work with people that are really going through another one of the transitions in life, but this time where they're saying, I just want to know everything and I want to do that self-work and that self-development and that growth. And I'm in that stage of life that I just want to live to the fullest. So it's really, really wonderful to do so. And I do that also kind of giving my wisdom nuggets in the form of weekly television show platform. And I still have a little yoga studio on the side. So I actually
Okay.
come from a professional fitness career and have been doing fitness actually really since my little tippy toe dance shoe days in Amsterdam. It's a ballet academy in Amsterdam. And
Okay.
yeah, I just went into a professional career. And at some point, now I'm just fabulous over 50, let's say it that way, right?
Not just, we are fabulous after 50, right? Watch this
But,
space.
yeah, but I cannot really teach 5 Zumba classes a day anymore. My
True.
body won't allow me. And so I have just slowly, over the last 10 years, moved a little bit into the life coaching space because at some point I was employed actually for years at a rehab facility working with patients in addiction. And I did the whole mind, body, spirit thing, right? Just
Right.
healing through the inside, healing through exercise, healing through trauma-informed yoga. And so I could really became specialized in anxiety. And so I was able to help people through all kind of just
Beautiful.
holistic ways to heal themselves. And I just put that life coaching stamp on it and have ultimately started working for myself again 2 years ago, self-employed. I have an office here and just see people all over the world really, because I
So
can
you do it
also
online, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it makes so much sense, and I always find that that's the beauty of this phase. And I mean, you just embodied it perfectly, as you say, is that we do have certain limitations which do come.
Yeah.
We can pretend that we're still as fit and have as much energy as we had 30 years
Mhm.
ago, but we don't. So we can either moan about it, or we can say, okay, then I take all this fabulous wisdom that I've learned and
Yeah.
let me give it back in a different way, not by giving 5 Zumba lessons a week, but in a different way. And I think that's all about embracing all of who we are, isn't it? That's what it'll come down to. Just before we get into the topic, because you've mentioned this television program, and so I understand it serves women all over the world, and it's more or less
Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah, it's 24/7. So it started years ago. I'm one of the founding members. And we started with a group of women in the United States with a purpose to serve women all over the world 24/7. So we just gathered and gathered and gathered hosts on all female topics. So we talk about finance, motherhood, parenting. There's lawyers on there that talk about women, female legal issues, people that just do
Fantastic.
coffee stops and everything else. So every hour there is a presentation, and I have a lot of guests, or sometimes I just babble by myself and throw some finally learned wisdom in there.
Right?
Finally
Of
acquired
which we have
wisdom.
tons, right? Yeah.
Finally acquired wisdom. And my show, for instance, is called Elian's Joy, How to Find Your Sexy Back, of course, because I keep throwing it at everybody. And it's just a half an hour show, and then I have guests on. And sometimes when the listeners are there, and that's the fun, the listeners in the second half an hour can interact with us.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
the #1 interactive platform in the world. And the idea was really started by a lady who is very active in all kind of women international issues and causes. So Global Women International Alliance and so forth. She has been recognized all over the world. She is a well-known lady that started it, but she just wanted people to wake up anywhere in the world and be able to log in onto this channel and find something that they're struggling with and find.
What a wonderful
Yeah,
idea. So
yeah,
what's it called and where can people
yeah.
find it?
It's called Win-Win Women. Yeah, win-win-women.com.
Fantastic. So
It's
people
very
who also
simple.
maybe want to be on the show or want to, offer
Yeah,
their knowledge,
yeah,
to feature and all that, they can also contact
yeah.
via there.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's a
just had
wonderful
many
idea.
friends that in the past, I said, you have such a great story. Would you like to share? Do you dare? Or you have a podcast, make it bigger, because we are at the same time on several television stations in the United States and Amazon. I don't know how that works in the Netherlands, actually. But do we have Amazon TV and Apple Fire, Amazon Fire, Apple TV? So,
Incredible.
so it's out there.
But
And
what a
it's
beautiful idea that wherever they are in the world, whatever time zone they are, whatever nationality, age, whatever, they can
struggling
find
with. They're
something for
struggling with
them.
poverty, or they're struggling with hunger, or they're struggling with education, or they're struggling with a legal issue, or they want to write a book. People are on there. So there's all these different levels of sort of entertainment education,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That people can
It's
learn.
valuable content in all
Yeah,
forms.
yeah, yeah. It's
Well,
really good.
well done to her and to you, because I mean, it seems like a really fantastic thing to offer
It's
women
a
out
fun
there.
one.
Right,
Yeah.
I think we could talk about that one already for a whole episode, but let's get back to our topic for today, because I love it, right? It's about get your sexy back in midlife and beyond. So maybe first of all, we start with, how do you define your sexy? What is your sexy to you?
I tell all my clients and patients, as I used to call them, that is for them whatever they feel. That
Right,
makes them wake up in the morning and go, wink at yourself in the mirror,
right,
kind of
right.
turn around a little bit and go like, I can handle the
Yeah,
day. And that whole saying really started working with people with severe trauma and severe addiction
right.
from trauma, or coming from their background, or wherever they came from. It used to be a facility with almost 80 to 100 patients. They stayed
Oh,
for 30
wow.
to 90 days. When I started working there, I started from day one working on my own trauma as well, because I
Right.
was never so confronted with the pain and the issues of other people. And of course, to a certain level, when you run a fitness studio for years, how's your daddy, how's mama, how's the kids,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not to that extent of really knowing why people are so much in pain. And for that reason, drinking, or for that reason, using opioids, or for that reason, using all other horrible things. So in that sense, I started coming there really as a yoga person. And then it became for me so intense to work with people through movement or meditation or breathing techniques to try to get in their body.
Right,
And they
right,
didn't love themselves. They just didn't.
right.
You
Yeah.
don't love yourself if you're in that stage of really, really experiencing so much pain. And I started telling them, just get your sexy back, find it back. Because if
Mm,
you find that back and you put it back on, even if you feel horrible, but you put a yellow t-shirt and a bright,
mm,
crazy hat in the morning, and you grab those high heels, green high
mm.
heels, and flashy purse, then you go out and people will tell you, you look amazing today.
Right.
And improving posture, right? Standing straight up and coming out there. And I always called that girls up, right?
Yeah.
Morning, right? Girls up and just get out there. Then you are just kind of, giving away a different personality of yourself.
Right.
It will make you emotionally and mentally more prepared for the day, because people will react to that. You will react if you look in the mirror. You go like, that's my sexy.
Right.
You might not feel it yet, but maybe you put your sexy on.
Yes.
But that's how
Yes.
it started. And then I really started writing, and so my second book, hopefully this year I'll get it done. I'm just kind of dragging a little bit with it. It's called 26 Ways to Get Your Sexy Back and
Oh,
Keep on Track.
fantastic.
And so
And
that,
keep on track. Is that, sorry, I cut you off. Yeah.
really just little nuggets. It's all about the words, right? The first word, of course, is acceptance, right? Where you are, what you did, how you grow up, what you did with your little T's and big T's, right? What we call that here, the trauma in your past, how that served you or how that just hurt you, and what you did with it and where you placed it. And now I call that how you really move through and move with your trauma, in a sense of bringing that movement in, which
Wow.
is just a word, right? Bring that movement in. Don't put it away and don't
Yeah.
ignore it, but just move with and move through it and then move forwards and move up, right? That's where
Wow.
it all is, right? So it was for me the same journey as I did in that time with my patients. I became very aware of where I was and
Mm.
what I had done due to my own pain and trauma and what I had hidden away.
Mm.
So it was a beautiful journey, and I still
And that's
use,
what you're basing on to do this, yeah,
yeah,
because
and
so the
I really started using
sexiness
that
is
word.
that lightness, right? It's the lightness, the playfulness, whatever you want to be, because indeed the trauma does, take us down. It makes us heavy, it makes us gray, it's we drag it with us. We're talking about obviously a midlife audience. So, I mean, we've been dragging lots of this stuff, since years and years
Yeah,
and years. And the more we drag it, the more it accumulates dust on the way. So it gets heavier and heavier. So it's finding that lightness again,
yeah.
but as you say, so not through mind over matter or positive thinking, or
Mm,
it's on the contrary by acknowledging then this trauma in whichever form it is, and as you say, the big T's and the little T's, and moving through it. I like that image of actually moving, because often we feel stuck, don't we? I mean, that's the biggest thing with trauma, is that it makes you feel stuck. It makes you feel
yeah,
that you can't move forward, you can't live properly, you can't open yourself up to joy or abundance or love or whatever it is, and that you're stuck, that you're like hitting your head against the wall the whole time. So actually moving with it is already, I mean, personally, I even feel it in my body when you say, move
yeah,
with the trauma.
yeah.
It already feels that there's hope, that there's progression in it.
Yeah, I always imagine just me being a little girl. I was a skipper. I just
Oh yeah,
loved to
yeah.
dance and skip. And I was a happy girl, but I had so much pain hidden inside in my 20s and 30s and early 40s. And I didn't show that. And I was just kind of skipping through life and always the happy Elian, and you're not sharing. And now I'm thinking that I just didn't grab that painful girl and skipped with her, right? And was
Right.
proud of the pain. Proud of the pain sounds weird, but in a sense of proud of that I had to go through it, that I was allowed to go through it to become who I
Who
am.
you are, right?
Right? It's kind of grabbing it by the hands and embracing it and saying it was terrible. And I did also terrible things because of it. Terrible in the sense of,
Yeah, whatever that means
in
for
the
us as
wrong
well,
choice with
Yeah.
I was with the wrong people all the time because I wanted to change them and not look back at myself, right? Take everything, control the world, and
Right.
definitely do be very busy with that so you don't have to look at yourself. So when I
I think a
started
lot of
to
us can
do that,
resonate with that, right? Just keep
mhm,
busy doing, in particular for other people like that. You don't need to look at what you need to actually let out of the cupboard and examine and work through.
and it was so typical when I looked back because I also came from what we call home, back home, what we call back home in the Netherlands, just the Lutheran upbringing in it Oosten, in the east part of the country. And just be yourself and
Mm.
don't go crazy.
Yeah.
Do maar gewoon, and all
Yes,
these
that is
things.
gek genoeg. Yeah.
Yes, and just not, why drive two cars? One is
Yeah.
enough, and, all that stuff. And I was real abundance inside.
Mm.
I was really more. I really was just like, I wanted to shine all the time. And I held that back because I was always embarrassed that I'm gonna embarrass somebody.
Yeah, you weren't
Embarrass.
complying to what was
Yeah.
expected
I'm
of you,
complying
right?
to being just humble and in that place of gratefulness. But I want to drag everybody, all 500
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
and just let's party.
Yeah. And some of
Yes.
us do have that life spirit that, yeah, we would like to talk less or talk loud or less loud or get, less agitated when you arrive in a room. People are like, wow, as if they've been hit by a hurricane. But it is who we are as well. And
Yeah.
it's constantly being told, be quiet or sit still or don't raise your
Mhm.
voice. Just makes you feel, I experienced that too. I just wanted to break everything. I just wanted to get out. I was suffocating. I felt I couldn't breathe anymore. And it did also turn itself into all sorts of physical symptoms, which were then resolved to
Mhm.
the day I said, no,
Yeah.
I am going to be who I am. Sure, I'm not saying that we shouldn't improve or that we shouldn't be, aware of people around us and how we come over and being sensitive. But I think, most of us do that. But there is a part of us
Yeah.
which is our spirit, and
Yeah.
that's in itself is a trauma to have to keep fighting against your innate nature in order to comply with the expectations of others. So what tips would you have? We're talking about a fabulous After 50 audience who have, every single one of us has our story. We all have our share of little traumas and big traumas, and they all affect us in different ways. What would you advise in order to get that sexy back, to get that lightness, that playfulness, that joie de vivre back, basically?
Yeah, so in the first place, and I wrote about it. So 2 years ago, I published my book, my biography, and wrote in the end the sort of life coaching tips. And for me, for instance, what I had always been through and which I found really, really important was that I had to let go of expectations. That was also the subtitle of my book, Letting Go of Expectations. I thought. So my parents passed away when I was in my 20s to my mid 30s. I was in the Netherlands and then I moved to the United States. And then so that kind of packed up trauma after trauma after trauma. My husband then left me again. And so I was by myself, ended up in the United States and had no clue what to do. No clue what to do in a big country, in a big corporate world, in a big how to make money, what to do with my little fitness classes and all that stuff. So it was just really awkward times, and I didn't share. So it was one of these things where I just constantly had the expectations of be strong, and I already got
Right.
through that be always strong and don't talk about it and get on and move on. And we're a little bit from that
Yes,
fabulous
generation. Yeah,
generation too,
yeah,
right? You
yeah.
just do it. So here I was always being strong and in control and everything else. And so I put on a lot of expectations that I felt in the first place were coming to me. So I just, you get in those circles of friends and you get in these circles of your 30s and your 40s, everybody married, baby, house, wide open spaces, granite countertop. I joke about that. And I didn't know what it was till my 50s. What the heck? What do you need to have a granite countertop? But I didn't own a house. I didn't own anything. I was just, I was not aware of all that must have. But I felt that I needed to fit in everywhere. And I was always looking to fit in that expectation
Right.
frame. And
Yeah.
with that, put on a lot of expectation on myself, right? As long as I
Right.
can fit in and just run and be with everybody. And so that whole expectation frame, letting go of
Yes.
expectations, that was my first big nugget that I found
And
to
it is the
good shot.
expectations towards yourself, right? It's not even, we take them on, maybe we pick them up because we see other people doing that. I'm increasingly learning about, the amount of things that we do because of it being so wired in us, that need for acceptance. It really is wired in us because way back, you didn't survive if you weren't part of the tribe.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I was talking with somebody else the other day about, speaking in public and why do we find that so terrifying? Why are we so terrified of being judged, of being told that we're not good? And it all comes from that, wiring. For in those days, you could not afford to be outside the tribe. So you had to fit in, and to fit in, there are expectations. What does fit in mean? So each group will have
Yeah.
a different set of rules which need to be fulfilled for you to fit in. So
Yeah.
indeed, to not put all of those expectations on yourself, and learn maybe who you are and to own who you are.
Yeah, I think we need to collaborate and connect with each other, right? And we care. I think that's the basics of mankind, right? That we still kind of have that tribal feeling that we want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
belong.
yeah,
And I wanted to
yeah.
belong so long, but I just didn't know where my tribe was. I had no idea
Yes,
where that
yes.
wild, crazy girly, that I'm still that wild child tribe. I call it a rebel inside me.
Yes,
You
yes. Oh,
know,
I can
just
relate to
where
that.
that
Yes.
tribe was. And so I just really was always working on fitting in, and fear of failure, lots of fear of failure. You know, I'm a serial, what do you call that, certification taker, right? I always want to do something new so that I
Right.
fit in.
Yes.
And now I
Yes.
can be this or be that. And I had a tremendous fear of failure there because, you know, there was just things that I thought I didn't live up to for my daddy and
Right.
my mama when I was younger, and I
Yeah.
couldn't communicate with them anymore. And they
Ah,
had a lot of problems. So I came through so much pain there. I was just, don't ever talk about it, right? Never
yeah.
talk about
Yeah. Put the
it. So
lid on.
creating that awareness was so big for me to understand that I had made so much decisions out of that expectation and pain.
Right.
And so the next thing that I didn't have, that I always say as number two for the listeners, is you have to learn to respect yourself in order to be respected.
Yes.
And in many of the relationships, I didn't feel that I was respected. I
Yeah.
was loved maybe, but not respected. And that's such a huge difference. I mean, I can love on a lot of people and I can love a lot of people and even make love with certain people on certain occasions. But there's just not that respect that I can
Right.
create for somebody, or that I felt so in some relationship respected, right? I
Right.
didn't have that many relationships, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there were a few. And I
Yeah.
was searching and I was searching and I was searching in the wrong places. And because of that, I was just that person, but I didn't feel that somebody was really respecting me for who I
For
am.
who you are, because that's the first thing, isn't it? So the first thing we have to discover, who are we,
Yeah.
free from all those expectations, free from this desire to fit in and to impress our parents or have them being proud of us or whatever, all
Yeah.
these things that we're desperately trying to comply to. So first we need to, well, who is the person who doesn't do that then? You know, you mentioned rebel or whatsoever. You know, it's discovering who we are and then loving it, as in owning it, right?
Yeah.
So that, and yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's
Yeah.
true. How can other people respect us if we don't respect ourselves and we don't give out the right vibes either? We're a bit like apologizing for being who we are, or I did that for
Exactly.
years.
Yeah.
Apologize
Yeah.
the whole time. Oh, sorry, I spoke too much, or oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I feel like I took over that conversation. And I'd be like, oh, you know, yes, listen. And now I know, of course, to not talk the whole time, but you still feel squashed. You feel little. You feel that you're not good enough as you are, right?
Yes, and you also feel that you're not being respected sometimes, or respect somebody that you might love. In my
Yes.
people coming up to me that says, when I read your book, I understood that my relationship was over. And I said, oh, sorry, I didn't do
Yeah.
that. But it really happened to people, to me. The people came
Mm,
up to me speaking about it because he said, I loved the guy that I was with, but I didn't respect him
mm,
anymore.
mm,
And that can happen when you don't want to. This is yours. You know it when you go to
mm,
that Christmas party from the firm or from
mm,
the business or whatever, and you don't want to take your husband or your loved one
mm,
with you because you're kind of embarrassed about him.
mm, mm,
Ooh,
mm.
that's a big
That,
no.
that
That's a
is a big
no.
one. It's a different
Yeah.
click which happens in there
Yeah,
as
you love
well.
somebody is because they're nice to their friends and they're hard workers and they're honest and sometimes they're
Yeah.
maybe just good people, but when you don't respect somebody for how they treat you and how they
Yeah.
treat
Yeah.
others in company or so, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
just a little pain that you just hold inwards, and then we hold it for so long that it starts really
Yeah, and it
aggravating.
feels normal. We feel that that's, you know, that's just the way it is. Okay, so those are great tips. What else do you have?
And then number three is always just go to that positive thinking. I have no idea, right? Veto, guilt, and shame. It's really important to just let
Guilt
them
and
go.
shame.
It's just hopeless, worthless, useless emotions that are just keeping us and holding us back. We have to accept again that we just made a lot of mistakes or just did silly things in the past
That's
because
part
of
of
the
life,
reason.
right? Isn't it? People who don't make mistakes are people who've lived so small, right? They've never dared put their, I mean, we start with mistakes with dropping our fork when we learn how to eat, when we
Yeah,
fall down trying to walk. I mean, mistakes, well, what are mistakes anyway? I mean, we're just learning. And I
yeah.
think that that's a very strong one for our age as well, the guilt and the shame of things done in the past. And I always think that, you know, how mean is it to
Mm,
judge the person back then? I go
yeah,
from the principle that the decisions that we make were at that time the best ones.
yeah,
Otherwise, we wouldn't have taken them. Most of us are not set on masochistic endeavors. You know, if we made that decision back then, It's
Yeah.
that seemed at that time the right one. And it's very unfair to then, accuse the 20-year-old or 5-year-old or whatever back then
I
of not
know.
having the knowledge that we have now.
I know, I know. And we just beat ourselves up and we beat
So
ourselves. It's
much,
such a
so
women
much.
thing. And we stay in that negative thinking, which I did a lot. And I was
Yeah,
also for years, for honestly 2 decades, probably around the people that were negative thinkers, right? We'll
right.
never have this, we'll never have that. And
Yeah,
so I thought that my happiness was really
yeah,
my happiness was really determined by the outside world. If I find somebody, or
yeah,
if I have a baby, or if I have a house, or if I find that career, then I'll be happy. And
yeah,
I just didn't look for that happiness within, right? I was
yeah.
always, that whole happiness was depending on all these things that can be taken away anyway.
Yes. How scary is that, right? We're
People,
constantly
events,
living in fear,
places,
constantly living in fear
always.
that somebody's going to take it away.
Yeah, yeah. It's like standing on top of the mountain, in Portugal, or having an amazing vacation, and that's your happiness moment, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
because it's an
yeah,
event, it's a place, it's with somebody. But then poof, it's
yeah,
over,
yeah,
and then you're unhappy again, right? And now you
yeah.
can't find it. And it
And
was
then
just
you're
not
constantly
easy.
searching. You might say, well, when I have a new car, I'll be happy. But
Yeah.
within 2 months of the new car, it's not new anymore. And then
And I
you need
really had
another
to do
one.
the work of that mindset. I started really doing the work myself, which I do now with my clients. To if you find a word that is negative or a thought, just immediately replace it, right?
Right.
Immediately replace it with something else that is with a happy outcome, and knowing that your vision, your goals will come true, right? That whole work that you
So
have
not
to,
all the I can't, I shouldn't, or
yeah,
that sort of
exactly.
stuff. You replace it
Yeah,
with something else in order.
yeah,
Yeah,
get
that's
it.
what they say, that we create our own reality, and what we say to ourselves
Yeah,
is what we're calling into being. So it might be time for us to start saying the right stuff.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
journey, isn't it, Elian? I mean, sadly, we've
Yes,
already got to the end of this. I feel I
it's a
could talk to you for
journey. It is a
ages.
journey.
It is a
Yeah.
journey. I always feel that we should embrace each step of it. They all come with advantages and disadvantages. Yes, we might have more physical ailments, or there might be less energy, or things like that. But at the same time, we have the wisdom. We do
Yeah.
have more confidence of, this is who I am. I'm not saying I'm perfect. My daughter the other day, she was like, oh gosh, you're so over the top. And I said, yes, yes, I am. That is who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Doesn't need to be perfect.
no, and then it's so liberating. It's so
Yeah.
liberating. That doesn't mean that you don't learn how you've got to, act with
Mhm.
people, etc. But there's not all of that fear of being found out, etc. I find it tremendously liberating. And for that reason, I find that these are really our glorious years.
Yeah.
We are more aware, we are more conscious, we're more about, like you do, giving back what we've
Mhm.
learned in order to help others. And it is just so fulfilling. So just one last thing, I would like you to repeat again the name. You've mentioned a few times your first book, Elian.
The first book is called 60 Miles from Neiman's. Second one that is coming out this year is 26 Ways to Get Your Sexy Back. So my
Right.
first book was an autobiography about
Right.
what I've learned. And Neiman's is actually a big, huge, well-known store in the United States.
Oh,
It's sort of a luxury warehouse. It's like the Bijenkorf, or
right.
it's
Okay.
like a
Yeah, like
luxury brand.
Harrods.
And so I moved to a small town ultimately to get myself back on my feet, cheaper, away from the big city. I just had to, I had a baby. And I moved 60 miles away from that big
So
warehouse.
that's what you mean, right? So
Yes,
you're moving
yes.
away from
And
all of
then the
that.
journey started to sell. So it was really just bottom of the pile, everything. I was in the gutter. I had no money. I had nothing left. And I had to start all over. And that was 60 miles away from everything.
Gosh. And look at
So
you now, literally radiating, doing all of this incredible
but all I
help.
have
Yeah, and I mean that's it's fantastic. I mean, this TV channel I find is amazing. The books, the work that you're doing, everything that you have done over your past has all contributed to making you the incredible woman you are here, sharing with us. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. So, Elian, thank you very, very much. Welcome back anytime on any of the very many topics you can talk about. And for the rest of you out there, this is a beautiful episode to be listened to, I would say, even a few times, so that we can really get all of those tips down, so that we can move beyond all of that trauma, get that sexiness back, that joie de vivre, that lightness that we deserve to have for the rest of our lives, right? Thank
Thank
you,
you
and
for
speak
having
to
me.
you this time next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.